Welcome to Right Talk with Mike Lee. Today's been very interesting. It's been a heck of a day, hectic to say the least. I'm awaiting my guests. My primary guest is James White, State Representative James White. We text each other. We text each other on the way in the last 20 minutes, and he's running a little late. He's in a committee meeting. But in the meantime, I got two of my, I don't know if they're good friends, or at least acquaintances. But
man, I thought I was your good friend. Now you're backing off.
Well, you know, we're some political acquaintances of mine. We work together on several things. Most of us are refugees from trailer park, so I'm gonna take my trailer park show lessons tonight, and we're just gonna chew the fat until James gets here.
There we go.
Because I'm sure he told me to be tight for him. So the fact that he may be a little bit late, I just hope he'll come on in. But I want to talk to you guys about a couple of things, because the topic what James and I were going to talk about is criminal justice reform. And Pokey told me that you have a great deal of interest in it.
Yes.
Gavino. And Gary, it's something that I'm sure that you know about. You're a political consultant, analyst, and all that stuff.
Absolutely. I do see it partly through the lens of politics. I mean, there are political issues that are unpopular and that are popular and controversial, and so I see it as a political issue partly.
But before James gets here, you know, I want to get you guys' reaction to the Mueller report and the conclusions, 9 conclusions of it.
I don't know how the Democrats can look at themselves in the mirror at this point. I think that if Trump had not been under a cloud, we might still have the House of Representatives. They have implied over and over again that they have seen evidence that they're going to impeach the guy, that he collaborated and colluded with the Russians, and there was never any evidence that he did that.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Well, I think there's going to...
On those who really collaborated with Hillary's people.
Yeah.
And I did some reading a few weeks ago about the way this, the 2 computer experts were saying how the information originally perhaps got in the wrong hands. They said the way it was transmitted, something about the transmission indicated that it was from a jump drive. Somebody put something on a jump drive and gave it to somebody. It wasn't off a computer. Of course, that's beyond my ken. My wife, who's my producer, she could probably explain it better. But to me, it was like it's a difference in something coming from a computer as opposed to coming from a jump drive. But really, this stuff originally came from whatever WikiLeaks got a hold of was on the jump drive.
The outrageous part is that the Russians they're our enemy. They want to destabilize our system, and the Democrats have been their partners in that for the last 2 years. They don't have to change the outcome. All they have to do is make Americans scratch their heads and say, hey, maybe the system is fixed, maybe it's rigged. And I think that they succeeded in their goal of making a lot of Americans. I saw people talking today, and Democrats still believe that there was collusion. They say, oh, well, it's a cover-up now.
Now, you know, to me, analytically, looking at just analytically, they affected the election. I've always asked the question, show me a vote that was changed.
Exactly.
Show me one, just one.
Exactly, and there's no evidence that they spent $100 million. So the insulting thing to me as a political consultant is we had Americans running both campaigns for president, surrounded by other Americans who were all experts on the voter of America, the people who go to the polls, and we're being asked to believe that all of those Americans working together didn't really change the outcome as much as 15 or 20 people in a basement somewhere in Moscow who've probably never even been here. If you could give anyone $100 million and they could switch the outcome of the election, then you'd go and ask them, you'd hire them. You would want to have somebody like that. There isn't anybody like that. Having worked on presidential campaigns, everybody's working as hard as they can to guess what the voters want to know. And you know, it's upsetting to me that Russians or Chinese or anyone can put out garbage on the internet, and we're still not good enough to catch them and then to say this was a lie, so disregard this post, because we're trying to make the most important decision we make politically, and they're just sort of watching from a distance and throwing garbage onto the table while we're trying to have a discussion about who we want to be president. And that irritates me that the Russians do that. But the very idea that an American campaign would say to a foreign government, hey, we don't know how to run our campaign, why don't you get some hackers and just have them change the results of the election? It depresses the vote. It makes people think that it's not worth voting. Well, why should I go vote if I've become convinced that foreign powers have the ability to change the outcome of the election?
And those are the vulnerabilities of advanced technology that we face today in the real world, where you have persons that are very, very intelligent in the hacking process and all that.
Well,
and you know, it puts us in a very vulnerable position, because probably the attempts to try to influence an election will continue. I mean, it's not gonna stop. And I guess for us, it's just to see how is it that we can best protect our election, because we're gonna go into a new election system come up for November.
You know, what frightens me is this: we have products of a dumbed down education system. We have technologies just unleashed like big time. And so that makes it, to me, it creates conditions where there's a great susceptibility to being duped. Really.
Yeah, you know, people have to learn how to think critically. When they read a ridiculous story on the internet, something needs to click in their heads, and they need to ask themselves, does this make any sense at all? Or is this just clickbait that some idiot made up just to get me to click through and believe it?
To me, the terrifying part is you have people like, I have a younger brother who has a PhD in philosophy and adult education, who just about believe anything he sees on CNN. I always tease and tell him he's a pseudo-intellectual. You know where you want to end, then you work your way logically to that end that you predetermined. That's not even intellectualism. In true intellectualism, you don't know where you're going to end up.
I believe that I know enough about the mechanisms of voting in America and our system to say that I think that there is a 0% chance that anyone can hack our systems and change the vote tallies. Because remember how decentralized it is. You made reference to the fact that Travis County is changing its systems, but that doesn't mean that the surrounding counties are changing their systems, because we have 2,200 counties that are in charge of picking their own equipment. So if you're sitting in a chair in Beijing or Moscow and you want to hack the system, you got to hack 2,300 systems. But you don't know which ones you need to hack, because maybe the results of the election are going to be that your favored candidate is going to win Florida but lose Ohio. Then you better concentrate on Ohio. But you don't know that. maybe the one that you needed to change was New Mexico or Tennessee. And even there, if you go to even one state, you've got to somehow change the totals in just enough counties that it still doesn't look suspicious.
There are just too many variables.
There are too many variables. It cannot be done. If you gave me an unlimited budget and said fix the next election, I know I can't do it because it's too decentralized. Now I do get nervous about people who say they want us to just go to a national system and everybody votes on the internet and boom, 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 it's all over and there's the total, and you at that point
It's wide open.
it is wide open. Right now it's by county in most states. In Oregon, everybody just mails them into a central place. And that bothers me. Because when we have a close election, like say Cruz and Beto, I think most Texans agree that Beto lost because they know that in their county the total was 1,000 to 2,000. They know that because they were active in their county. Then they look at a spreadsheet in the newspaper and it says, my county, 1,000 to 2,000. If somebody in the center at the state level switches some numbers around, whatever county turned in those numbers would have a fit, and rightly so. They would catch them. So you would have to pay off every official in the county so that no one would ever say anything, and you still don't even know how many counties you need to change,
Or which one?
or which ones to change, and which ones have the most easily attacked systems. And I just believe in American ingenuity. I think that we are.
Well, you know, when at the end of the day in polling places, you'll turn in a report where it'll say 55 presented, but only 50 voted. So if you look at it from a precinct to precinct in a big state, and you have many of those, at the end of the day, it shows up to be a real big number. But like in your rural areas here in Texas, they still do paper, but because you say they're of the size, they're not that big. But they still do paper, and those, I mean, would obviously be very difficult to change or hack.
You just couldn't do it without paying off all the officials. And
Yeah.
poor old Starr County. Starr County, I understand, is still the most corrupt county in Texas, but that's the county that delivered Lyndon Johnson his 400 votes they all voted in alphabetical order with the same handwriting. Now, I think that these days
Didn't they start calling him Landslide Johnson?
And dead people were
dead
also.
people voted. So I think that
sounds like Chicago
our
stuff.
elections in these counties are run by retired teachers, retired judges, good people. They're good people. And I don't believe it's possible, even in Starr County these days, to drive down there in a pickup truck and say, I know what the total was, I want you to turn in a different number. And I don't want anybody to raise their hand and say, wait, that's not what we counted on election night. I don't think it's doable. I don't think that you can fix an election from the outside.
But they've made a lot of hay out of it because they have the cooperation of the fake media. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, MSN, ABC, what's MSNBC or whatever the heck it is.
I saw an editorial where somebody wrote, Trump's shamelessness was not under the jurisdiction of Mueller. And I want to say, well, yeah, that's right. It's a good thing, isn't it? It's a good thing. There are laws and you have to obey the law. Now, if you use foul language or you hang out with the wrong people sometimes, all of those things, they're worth talking about. But if they're not against the law, they're not against the law. And you can't have a special prosecutor who comes out and says, we're going to evict Trump because he's not very stylish or because he's rude or because he offends somebody.
Because he's boorish.
Because he's boorish.
That doesn't matter.
And so the rule of law has stood up. The White House resisted any temptation to fire him or to interfere with the report. everything went the way it was supposed to go, in my opinion. I hate to sound like Pollyanna, like everything's just the best of all possible worlds and everything, but
I haven't had a chance to watch CNN today. I wanted to watch it and see what are they going to talk about now.
I don't know. They're certainly the New York Times tweeted out the report, and they only highlighted one sentence, and it was the sentence where the report says we didn't find evidence to indict him, but we don't exonerate him. Well, no investigation ever proves the negative. No, the police are never going to come by your house and say, "Hey, we ransacked your house and we didn't find anything. You are a blameless man. You're going straight to heaven. Everything is just completely perfect." And what they can say is, "Hey, we searched your house. We didn't find anything." That's all they know. That's all they can say. And that's what they said. That for 2 years they looked for something. They never found anything.
2 years and $95 million.
Yep.
Given very much more serious issues that we have in this country, that those dollars and resources could have gone to. I guess that's my concern, that it's just what's a big waste of money. And like you say, it's very evident how the media plays to it, and enhances what is really nothing there. And it seems like it's just like Hollywood as well. They're always out there bashing.
I've always felt only God can make something out of nothing.
Mm.
These fools made a lot of noise about nothing.
Nothing.
And we heard members of Congress on the Democratic side
I
say,
remember
seen
months
the
ago, so and so is going to flip.
Yeah.
Manafort's going to flip. So and so is going to flip.
Right.
Nothing. And I haven't been on Facebook in quite a while. You have fools on Facebook. Oh, they got him now. Oh yeah, all right.
Well, I would say that Manafort did flip. I think that they had several people in the campaign who they went after on other charges. Paul Manafort was not a clean businessman. They found things, and I'm sure that they sat him down and said, "Tell us about something that Trump did, and we'll let you."
Say if you tell us what we want to hear, we'll go light on you.
So I think they flipped every one of those guys. They certainly flipped this crazy attorney who was Trump's personal attorney.
Poor fella.
Paraded him all over the place, Cohen, and so he came out with the best stuff he could come out with. Trump's portrait and all this ridiculous stuff that makes Trump look bad. And maybe Trump has to answer to some of the things that he said on tape and all that sort of stuff, but there was nothing impeachable. There was nothing, and there never was anything. They never came out with any evidence at all.
A big bunch of nothing.
Nothing burger.
Van Jones said that in the first place. I remember reading, he said it was a nothing burger. That's exactly what he said.
I think that when somebody is in trouble and they're in court or being investigated, usually there's some reason. I am happy that I think that in this country we don't usually see the police just pulling somebody over and investigating them, arresting them for no reason, putting them in jail for 2 years, putting them on trial. I understand that the police aren't perfect and they can make mistakes, but generally our legal system works. But in this case, I don't even know what the piece of evidence was that they thought that they saw. There had to be something that made them want to investigate it. I think they made it up.
Well, apparently some volunteers to Trump's campaign got drunk and said something. Somebody said, one guy supposed to got
That's
drunk
not
and
evidence.
said something.
That's not evidence.
They're just stretching. They still can't get over the fact that Hillary lost. Somebody needs to just send them something and say, look, the election's over. It's still not over for them.
Well, 2000 isn't over for them. They still talk. And I heard somebody on the radio yesterday, a Democrat said, well, Trump lost to Clinton. And he got fewer popular votes. That's true. But he didn't lose. I mean, That's like saying, well, the Cowboys, you know, they were the world champions because they got more completions than anybody else. Sorry, that's not what the rule
They
says.
had more sacks.
Yeah, they had more sacks, and so
Let's see. I never knew the show would turn into James. Come on, brother.
just put it up higher a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I care about criminal justice reform. I appreciate you inviting me on the show.
I was, I think I know a few months ago I was talking about when the criminal justice reform came up on it, but the one that was passed by Congress only affects the federal government. It doesn't affect the state government. The one thing I kind of like, or I like about this administration is it leaves much of what needs to be done up to the states, which is where it should be. Because if all politics are local, things have to be done locally. The best people do are the people who are local. Mm-hmm. Not the guys in D.C. who know nothing, push paper, who I believe spend much time in just job justification. Just they're dealing with things that they're not even in touch with. They're dealing with things hypothetically or theoretically, and people are real. They're alive.
Well, I spent 30 years in D.C., and I know a lot of bureaucrats, and some of them are pretty senior people, and I don't think they're evil, but they don't know what it's like to live in Austin, much less Dripping Springs or Cleburne or Eden, Texas. They just don't know. How could they know? They just don't know.
Well, they can't know. We shouldn't expect them to.
Exactly.
It's just like expecting your neighbor to do what's best for you. He doesn't know you, doesn't know your facts and circumstances, so.
I'll never forget when I was at the county, we would always get these monthly reports of jail inmate population at the county. And I would say, given the population of Travis, you know, not joking aside, I would look at the numbers and I would say, my God, don't certain people get in trouble? You know, don't white people get in trouble? My God, you know. But, you know, the prosecutor, talking about reform, is a very, very powerful voice in, you know, the prosecution of an individual, and a lot of it is discretion, you know. As a lawyer, you know, you can go this way or that way. And that was one of the things that I would always notice when I was at the county, that the majority of the inmates were either child support, was, you know, not using drugs, but selling drugs, you know. So these were people that, you know, could be in a rehab or somewhere instead of being in a cell.
Is not the appropriate
You know, and now what I have also noticed from, this was in the 90s to today, from prosecution, is that, and again, like you say, it's politics. When certain people get in trouble, the perspective is today, what I've seen is, well, let's not like back in the day, let's not give them 15, 20 years so they'll remember that this is something you don't do, and we'll send a message to the community. Today, certain folks are looked at, well, let's find out what caused him to do that.
Right.
Or her to do that.
Not the
so they don't
fault.
they don't.
It was just the bad society, and I saw something about that today. There was a woman in Atlanta who gave her parents' address instead of her address so she could get her kids in a different school, a nicer school. And she got arrested, she was prosecuted, she was fined the equivalent money, and Democrats were saying all she was doing was fighting an unjust system. No, that's not all she was doing. She was lying about where she lived. That's what she was doing. But the Democrats were saying, well, she didn't lie. It was the system that caused her. All she wanted was a better future for her kids. Oh, okay. What happens if everybody in the whole state wants a better future for their kids, and now everybody has a Highland Park address? So Highland Park High School has 22 million students in it or something.
Everyone's saying.
Well, like I brought this book because I read it, and it was introduced to me by a professor at UT, and it's Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson, and he's an attorney that back in the day he started working on cases where individuals were put on death row, and he talks about one individual who was married, is an African American that was married to a white woman. And these are, real small communities in Alabama and all that. So the sheriff and the judge and everybody, they're all one and the same. And in order to critique or show their, not acceptance of that marriage, well, then they got him into a legal system. They got him in, they charged him for murder, for something that they thought they had seen him. But again, the prosecutor is very, very strong because he proceeded with that to the point that he was put on death row. And this lawyer speaks about that whole experience where at the end of the day, they all recanted. They took him off and he was a free person. But for 18 or 20 years, he endured so much psychological harm while he was there that when he got out, he really wasn't able to adjust to the free society. So at the end of the day, he ended up dying. But Stephen Bryan has done, not only him, but numerous death rows and has got him off death row. And in all his investigations is that at the local level, that one prosecutor that built the case, okay? So the victim obviously is a person that now he has to, swim away or disclose more information to say that he's an innocent person. And we find that a lot in our communities, especially here locally, like you mentioned locally. Because I guarantee you, if we were to release, nonviolent, the child support. I always thought, if you owe child support, how are you going to be paying child support if you're locked up? That doesn't make sense. But the other thing is when you do that, it's going to affect, we don't need no more jailers. We don't need no more cooks. We don't need no more office. So it has this kind of like, effect that impacts all these other groups that engage with, I call it the jail industry, So, I mean, you're a lawyer,
The jail industrial complex.
Yes.
That's part of what's going on there.
And for example, my nephew right now, he's in there, I think, for the third time. Never a user, only a seller, okay? And today, last week, went to get an update on him. He's eligible for parole. He's in Denton, Texas, where it's a warehouse that they build, or I don't know what kind of products they do, but it's a work site. And I'm saying again, here we are as a government supporting this one individual. All he had was not users but selling, and so for 10 years we're going to support him.
Yeah, it's
to me, that issue is the most unjust issue. What I see California doing, Colorado, and now Texas, is we're saying, well, if you got a little bit of weed, what's the big deal? Under 2 ounces, we'll give you a $250 fine. And if you get caught again, we'll give you another $250 fine. If you get caught a third time, $250 fine, but then we'll start getting serious. But basically, you're just someone who sits around in their backyard and you smoke a little and you're not hurting anybody. But the drug kingpin who sells you the stuff, we're going to throw him in jail for 10 years? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's like arresting all the people who are delivering water or groceries or something like that. We're saying if you just got a little bit, it's okay. And as Republicans, we believe in the market. We believe that the market works. And if there's a demand for these recreational drugs among people who have some spare money, then I do not see how we can say that we're going to punish the people who respond to that supply. And I don't think it's a racist attitude, but it certainly hurts poor people who don't have any other work, and it lets the other people who got disposable money off the hook. If you can afford to buy marijuana, we're going to let you out of jail. If you are so desperate that the only way you can think of to make money is to sell drugs, we're going to throw the book at you. That makes no sense to me at all. I cannot defend it in any way.
I don't know that, and this is a question for James, who I'm still hoping will show up. And that's while criminal justice reform has been a priority on the federal level, it doesn't seem to me to be a priority on the state level at all. You know, you got taxes, school, things like that, and I understand that. But it should come into place somewhere.
I think it is. I really do think it is. I think it made it into the platform, and I think that the other area that I've heard most talk about is the civil asset forfeiture, where the law right now basically is structured so that if the sheriff pulls you over and finds a suitcase full of $100 bills, they just pick it up and walk off with it. They don't have to prove that you shouldn't have that money. Now you might have just now sold your motorhome to somebody, and that's your lawfully gained money. You can sue them, but the burden of proof is now on you to prove that you shouldn't have to give up that money. And in the meantime, they can use it to buy stuff that they want, like a nice new cruiser or 4x4 or something that they believe they need. So there are police departments that are funding themselves.
I used to do forfeitures for Jefferson County.
By freezing assets and seizing assets. So those were forfeitures from citizens, and you don't have to even prove that the person
because the burden
did
of proof
anything wrong.
The burden of proof is different on civil forfeiture.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's not even proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, if we think somebody's a drug dealer, let's go after him. Let's gather some evidence, and then we'll treat them according to the law, whatever it is at that time.
There's a show.
If we think that they murdered somebody, let's prosecute them. But if we can't prove that they did anything wrong, I don't see how we can seize their money.
There's a show that I'm just dying to do, really. I've been planning it for months, because I think two of the primary problems in our judicial system are the lawyers and the judges. Because there are a lot of problems and difficulties that could be eliminated, probably almost completely, if they would behave ethically and responsibly. But every time I pick up the paper, I don't know, I sent you something today. I got that Michael Avenatti thing, where he's trying to shake down Nike. You know, I mean, these guys just...
He's got some other legal problems
just
as
out
well.
of control, man. I know someone who I respect and loved a lot once told me, well, Michael, you have a law license, you have a license to steal. I say, I don't look at it like that. That's not how I look at it. I didn't go to college and law school and have all these dreams and all that to steal from people. I want to help somebody. I don't want to steal from somebody.
I have worked around lawyers my whole adult life. Married one. She's a judge today. I always try to hope that things are not all the way off the rails. I think there are dishonest attorneys. We had Cohen testifying to all the basically his job was to call people and yell at them and bully them, and that's not very honorable. But I think that almost all the legislators are honest people, and then somebody does something dishonest, and that's the one we remember. Almost all the lawyers are good people. The bad ones exist, and we remember them. Police officers are almost all good people, but you if you have 1% bad apples
with a gun,
that's a problem. That's a big problem.
With a gun,
1%. How many officers does Austin have? 2,500 or so.
Somewhere around there.
So 1%, you got 25 guys riding around with a license to kill. Is one way to look at it.
The other day I was pursuing the Travis County Commissioner's Court to dig in and make more of an issue on court-appointed attorneys, because they get a stipend. Yet one of the most common calls we get through LULAC is my son or daughter got a court-appointed attorney, and once they did that, no phone calls, no emails, I'll call you.
Well, you know what happens,
And I said,
unfortunately,
wow.
and I have a lot of familiarity with this, is court-appointed, the way I was trained, law school and all that, and me personally, I don't treat a court-appointed case any differently than I treat a 3-day paying client. Because that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm.
But court-appointed attorney, I've heard attorneys say, you know, you want $10,000 show or $20,000 show. You should do some work at least. You guys get court appointments, and don't see the client until they go to court.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're in court, talk to the prosecutor, trying to make a quick deal and get rid of it. They're actually plea lawyers. And my personal experience when I was in Jefferson County, when I was practicing there, I got a few court appointments. I got a couple of them that I went to trial and won. And an older lawyer at the time used to be a state rep. He told me, he said, Michael, you're gonna stop getting appointments because they're not appointing you to try those cases. You're trying them and winning them, so because you're not good for the game.
Well, that's a big disappointment.
Well, I would sit there in court. Again, when I was working with the commissioner, he'd send me around, and I would go around this, and you would hear the lawyers go to the bench. Judge, he hasn't paid me. Can I postpone this case? Yes, we'll postpone the case. And or, like you say, they just present themselves there with a client, and then just say, okay, you can go pick up your check now. And they go upstairs and they go pick up the check. And we're not talking about thousands of dollars. We're talking $1 million, the budget line item for Travis County and how much they pay.
Court appointments?
Yes, court appointments. It's a big, it's a big amount of money. But, like I say, you can't win anyway.
Well, that was something I tried to avoid because when I was still in law school when I was working down the firm in Dallas. I had to, in criminal clinic too, while I was in law school. I had to go see a guy who was in the jail, and so I go to see the guy, and I'm going in the jail. I'm counting how many doors I go through. I go through 6 doors, and then I'm finally in the cell with this guy. The guy in the next cell saying the cow jumped over the moon for 45 minutes while I'm talking to the client, and I'm in the cell with him. I say, I'm locked up.
You're locked up.
I couldn't get out of here if I wanted to.
You're going to leave when they let you leave. That's at that point.
And that's it's an interesting feeling. And I tried to avoid doing criminal law because I didn't like the way the jail smelled in Dallas. Because when I was in the cell with the guy trying to interview him, I see pipes, water pipes, and stuff, all that kind of stuff. Of course, this was we were talking 1974, 75.
Well, it fits in with Republican ideas.
Yes,
We don't think anybody should be taken care of by the state, and that's what you were talking about. The shame is, this is a young man who has some initiative, or he wouldn't have gotten himself into trouble. He has some smarts, or he wouldn't have gotten himself into trouble. And instead of him being channeled to be the manager at the Target or something else, he's a cost now. He's a cost now, and we know that if you wake up in the morning and you do some work, you earn some money, you go out with your money and you buy something, you feel good about yourself. But if people just give you stuff all day long, that does not make you feel like a good person. And so I think the people who come out of jail, it's not any shock to me that if you spend half your life in jail, you're going to end up back in because
That's what you know.
That's what you know, and you got used to it. You got used to it,
and when you're out here, no jobs, no opportunities. Everything is all negative, and it's very struggling and challenging, and then I guess many of them say, well, what else,
And Gary, what the problem I've had for a long time is this: a felony conviction should not be a life sentence. A person with a felony conviction can't get can't get the housing of their choice.
I know that
But and if
Governor
they have kids, I mean, the kids, it affects the kids. It affects families.
Sure. Governor Nathan Teal in Georgia was a Republican governor who went to his legislature to ban the box. He said, "I don't want anybody being allowed to even ask if you've ever been convicted of a felony."
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're serving a felony sentence, that's one thing. You have not paid your debt to society. But returning citizens who have paid their debt to society should be allowed to get jobs, and that's not Mother Teresa being nice to bad people. That's just smart. That's just the community saying, this person has paid their debt. Let's put them to work now, give them something to do, let them take care of their family, let them be a productive member of society again, and let them vote.
They do that, and they do that in Dodge City on Gunsmoke. Once a man pays his debt to society, it's over.
Once you let him out.
It's over. It should be over. It shouldn't follow you around like a shadow.
Well, and I was discussing Second Amendment issues with someone recently, and I said, well, you know, if someone's been convicted of shooting someone, I can sort of understand why you don't let them have a gun again. She said, no, if you think they're dangerous, you should put them back in jail to protect us. If you don't think they're dangerous, let them have a gun. And that's pretty powerful logic.
The other thing that kind of troubles me a bit about my conservative friends is you talking God, Jesus, family, all this good stuff. Where's forgiveness? Where's that? What role does that have?
Well,
Shouldn't it be about rehabilitation?
it
not
should.
punishment?
And I think it's about fear. I think it's about fear. People want the violent criminals, rapists, robbers, people who knock you over the head with a gun.
Well, dangerous people should be locked up.
That's what they want. They want those people to be put in jail, and they don't want them to serve 30 years and then come back and do it again. They don't want them to serve 6 months and get out on good behavior. That's just fear. That's just fear. I'm sure that, as you say, in church on Sunday, they say, yes, we should forgive people. But I think that it's easier to forgive somebody because they yelled at you or because they cut you off at the intersection. You can forgive them. If a child lied to you, you forgive them. But if they hurt you, that's where you earn your stripes as a religious person. You have to earn. You have to show that you can be forgiving of people that you're scared of. You're still scared of.
Well, like I say, it's real strong. It's very powerful, the law, because I'll never forget when we used to work. Ken Odom would come in and brief the commissioner on an issue, and he would say, "This is the law." Vernon used to govern the county. So, Commissioner, which way you want us to argue, this one or this one? So, but that's that's the law.
That's the law.
Yeah.
So they would all weigh which strategies they would go with, and then they proceed, as a government, as a government body, the whole commissioner's court. But, the dynamics of having a handful of people make a big major decision, to go whichever direction is sometimes scary, because, like you say, that's why it's real important, and that once our kids are introduced to some kind of judicial system at a very young 15, 16-year-olds, even though because they're teenagers or record, but at the end of the day, man, those kids, those young men or whatever, they, like you mentioned, some of them get felonies at 16 or 17. And maybe a hot check, it'd be, something nonviolent or whatever. But man, that stigma, it stays with them it impacts them in jobs, it impacts them for life.
Well, most boys go through a juvenile delinquent stage, I think. We stole apples and stuff like that. I mean, it's just the truth. And some are fortunate enough not to have been caught up in the system. And others were unfortunate, were caught up in it. but I think that the criminal justice system needs to do a little adjustment to the right in the sense of doing what's right, which is to try to be helpful rather than a hindrance. But right now, a guy gets a felony mark on, if you have a felony mark, if he happens to have a tan like me, it's almost like Katie by the door, man. You can't.
You're limited.
It's hard for you. It's hard for you to get to progress legitimately. So that only leads you the illegitimate route. And so it becomes you get. I believe one thing you call in the game of trying to beat the system.
Yeah, and a white collar criminal may not ever fill out a job application again. They may get out and they get some money together and they open up a business with another person, with a partner or something like that. So they never have to fill out anything. There's never anybody who says, no, I'm not going to hire this person. But someone who is a worker, who has to apply for a job at a filling station or a grocery store or something like that, somebody's looking at all these applications, and again, they may look at it and say, okay, this guy's served his time, but I've got another applicant here who's never been in trouble. I think I'll take the one who's never been in trouble. So the only way to address it is to ban the box, make it illegal to even ask someone, were you guilty of something back in the past?
You know, I think when I think of things that make no sense. My wife, who's my producer, has been working at Gary Job Corps Center for 15, 16 years. Gary Job Corps Center, which gets the really the high school rejects, or they couldn't finish high school, they had trouble in school and stuff like that. They want most of the young men at Gary Job Corps have had some contact with the criminal justice system. They won't even hire a janitor if he has a felony. That's insane. And to me, I don't think that all life's lessons are to be learned from someone who's lived it so perfectly. I have a brother who I love dearly, and he's done off and on, probably, I know it's over 50. My brother Kevin says it's over 60. But sometimes I call in him and get his perspective on something. I'll call him and say, he say, well, I can give you the crooks angle. But you know, sometimes that's what I need to know, because something I wouldn't think of. He'd think of an angle that I wouldn't think of.
Yeah, and maybe banning the box is not a magic solution, because if you ask someone enough questions, you're going to find out that they were unemployed for 6 years in their 20s, and it's going to be pretty obvious that they were not like touring Europe or something like that. They were wards of the state, and so and you know, if you look at it from the point of view of a business, if your business is selling diamonds, you don't hire the guy who stole diamonds from a jewelry store. You want somebody who hasn't ever stolen any diamonds from a jewelry store. And so, you know.
But like Michael mentioned, there are those that just haven't been caught. You know, you can never be able to say, you know, that a person has never stolen anything, because there are many that do and continue to do, and they're just never caught, you know. And those that are, well, then obviously they're branded. I mean, sometimes I go to the store and I forget, you know, I take something and I say, oh my God. The other day,
you leave something in the car.
The other day I went to eat at a restaurant that I go every morning for my coffee, and you kind of get all my stuff organized that morning, every morning. And I said, oh, okay. So this is what I'm going to do today. I get home and I realized, and I said, well, you know what? I didn't pay. I did not pay. So I went back to the restaurant. I said, I'm so sorry. She said, well, Gavino, you come here every day. We kind of thought, you know, we'll catch you tomorrow.
You were thinking about it, yeah.
But had I been someone else that, you know, hey, they could have called the police and said, hey, he walked off, he stole, you know, he ripped me off.
And maybe you're on parole or something.
And now I'm going to jail because in Travis County, robbery is one of the biggest things that prosecutors will not bend an inch on robbery, and they'll just throw the books at you. I mean, and
Well, no, they do. They do consider some issues that, in some ways, you think, well, why would they consider that? Because if someone says, yeah, you know, I beat up my wife, but I was drunk and I feel terrible and I've gone through a program and I've turned over a new leaf, the court treats that person better than if he says, well, yeah, my wife has a big mouth and so I hit her. I said, well, you don't have any contrition, you don't feel bad about it, we're going to send you to the jail for a longer sentence because you're not showing any sign of being sorry. So they do sometimes take those things into account. If someone, I would hope that if the court says, hey, you walked out on a $75 restaurant bill because you took all your friends to Denny's and then there was a misunderstanding, but you walked out on a $75 bill, hopefully they'll say, well, this has never happened before. What happened? And you say, I screwed up. I forgot. Maybe that'll be a little easier than if the judge sees that same person 3 weeks later. Oh, I forgot again.
well, you know, the prosecutors and the judges here in Travis County, all being Democrats and progressive and whatever, but they probably have the highest record of incarceration of our people, you know, locally, because, oh my God, like I said.
They certainly have more DWIs,
Oh.
I would guess.
Well, this is something I don't understand when the local liberals say we don't want ICE to find out about this guy. We picked him up. He's got tattoos and he had a knife on him, but we don't want to be mean to him. So they let him go, and they turn it into a racial thing. They say this man, we want to treat him well because we want to prove that we're open-minded, and just because he's an illegal alien, we're not going to turn him over, even though we picked him up for getting in a fight. And I think to myself, who do they think they're helping? Because I think that guy does not go out to Lake Travis and hang out at the restaurants and beat up some rich people out there. I think he goes back to the neighborhood that is the most downtrodden, and he recruits more gang guys, and he hurts the community that these people say they're trying to help. They're saying, we want to be nice to the Hispanic community, so we're going to let this guy go and not call ICE. I don't think that they are doing what they think they're doing. I don't think that they're helping the Hispanic community when they do that. I think they're hurting the Hispanic community when they do that. But you may have a different perspective than me. I don't know.
Well, to me, you know, I always go, I know we're running out of time, but I know that to me, I always go back to that we're all animals as human beings. And
Naked apes.
yes, and the geographics of this area, why you say, why is there so much illegal immigration? To me, I kind of find it, well, it's people coming back to where they belong, you know. Their terrain, you know. At the end of the day, it's gradually coming back. But I don't know. That's my opinion. That's
You know, I was for a time I was teaching English in middle school English at alternative schools in Houston. I worked mostly at a school called Contemporary Learning Center. They call it LCLC. They used to call it Criminal's Last Chance. You were quiet. Okay. And there was a girl, one of the students I had, a girl, young Hispanic girl, right? And she says, Mr. Lee, you know what? We're gonna take this nation. We're gonna take our place back, one person at a time. I think of that every time I see immigration. I think one person at a time. Okay, Myra Carrillo.
because see, to people beyond south of the border, they see this area as America, the hemisphere, America.
America.
Yeah.
North and south.
And no boundaries, you know, no boundaries. So they, you know, from Argentina all the way to Canada. You know, in Canada, they don't have an issue with immigration, you know, right now. I mean, I think they're giving passes away, you know. But, yeah, to me, that's always been a human behavior thing versus a a policy or some government,
Just human migration.
Yeah, just human migration.
Like most people agree that civilization can originate in Africa, and then over 80,000 years, people spread all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a migration thing. Well, thank you guys for doing the show. I guess my buddy James White couldn't make it this evening.
Well, the life of politicians, they get caught up. And,
He did tell me he did.
I
text me and
remember
told me he was
working
in
for
committee.
one, and there were times we just couldn't make it, because we got tied up in a meeting or constituent or something. But